Dead Fish Cheese Spread is actually giving us an excellent case study in historical reasoning, in chronology, in eyewitness testimony, and inference. Whether he's ultimately right or wrong almost becomes secondary to how the evidence is assembled.
Well, hello, folks. What do we have here?
This entire investigation so far, I would honestly say the South Texas sighting gets 4 stars out of 5.
A few days ago, the Backyard Professor put out a review of my documentary after I asked him to take a look.
Everybody has a different opinion right now. There are people out there, Dr. Phil, who are still saying, oh, no, it's got to be our technology. Now, I look at what I saw from those 3 videos that came out in 2017. I don't think they're our technology.
Anybody who tell me some bullshit story and the Air Force with the weather balloon crap, weather balloons don't go Mach 1. This thing was going all kinds of speeds. So whatever it was not made of this earth.
And I'm very confident that there's things out there that have not been created by mankind.
And this is the part where I just got to go hard against this, right? Like, this is where the line is drawn. This idea that they're not ours, it's not ours. We can't do that. That's the most absurd thing ever. That's the psyop that the UFO people are trying to brainwash humanity into thinking. Because if you just look at the science, if you just look at the first 20 minutes of this recording, you realize that's 100% human technology we're seeing. No question, 0% chance we're looking at alien technology. And then what he's implying here is that it must be alien technology because we wouldn't have had the material science to produce it, which I think that's a reasonable argument.
I told my dad, I said, look, man, a UFO. Dad goes, damn, right over the house. He can see it too, you know.
Del Fish, prego. Parla italiano? Parla italiano? Formaggio?
Heavens, no. You have done nothing of the sort to establish that. And then you have gravitational lensing. Now, this one was... The video suggests that the object may have appeared flickering or distorted or fuzzy because a gravitational field was bending light around it. So it even proposes that faceted crystal surfaces and gravitational lensing may operate at the same time altogether.
They both may be occurring, most likely occurring at the same time. Its motion, if its motion is towards you, the observer, or moving away from the observer, you'll see these very dynamic changes. And the same thing we've been able to document is with radar. Having the same weird propagation of signal around it, and we've had some odd radar returns, based upon this effect. Which is causes late returns of the radar signal, and in some cases earlier returns. And it's we're seeing the same thing with LiDAR. It's affecting every one of these, pretty much everything in the electromagnetic spectrum that.
Yeah. This particular Dead Fish Cheese Spread, I really like his comments. He's been a good commentator through the several months I've been around. I like this guy. Don't tell him I said that. It'll swell his fat head. But he says he's seen an orb, and he is suggesting that it's a huge crystal or some kind of a material like that, and the flickering of the light within the crystal, because the flick, and then this gentleman is saying that the flickering is the propulsion system. Would that kind of, yes, the orb is the engine, they're saying. Would that kind of be in line with what you're seeing? Would that help explain this idea of the distorting, the gravitational lensing?
Well, both those perspectives are interesting because if you have a polyhedral shaped object, it's got a multifaceted flat, multiple flat faces of multiple flat planes. You can certainly cause a glinting of light, almost like a disco ball appearance.
Below the craft, observers noted a bright yellow light that behaved similarly to flames, creating a flickering effect.
They have still managed to keep themselves out of focus. Yeah, and you get a prismatic effect. It's possible that you're separating different wavelengths of light at that point, depending on the angles themselves. Yeah. I mean, white light's going to come back at a certain angle. Red light one extreme, blue light on the other extreme. They all have their own angle of incidence. So that's going to be, you'll be able to see, looking through like a polarizing filter. And you can see these changes.
Crossed over their heads several times, about 20 feet up, right above their heads. Described as a 15-foot diameter disco ball in appearance object, multifaceted, reflecting a lot of light, emitting light.
But the crystalline idea, talking about a crystal-like structure, I mean, that's an interesting point. It's a great point. It's a great point because these objects appear to be very reflective.
And more orbs.
Frequencies, wavelengths. Yep. It's so I wanted to say something on the last person that.
So I wanted to say something on that last
basis.
Well, the other thing is
you might have this issue too that Dead Fish Cheese Spread says. He said, I got it on video too, but it messed with the video a little bit.
Yes.
Now, you guys have had that experience.
Yes.
He's not just bluffing here, making stuff up.
Many
You've
times.
actually told me, hey, this stuff messes with your equipment.
What's the thing? We're using really good equipment. We're using hyperspectral equipment.
And you're in a Faraday cage and you're
right. Yes, a lot of it is shielded. I mean, they're in metal enclosures, and there are times that even with the metal enclosures that we're still having certain issues with the battery life and that sort of thing.
Right. Heavens, no, you have done nothing of the sort to establish that.
So I wanted to say something on the last person that.
Of course, we've been fortunate that we've used the best cutting edge instrumentation. In fact, we're using hyperspectral equipment. We caught some really great data, but there are even some of that great data and high magnifications of looking at these objects. I mean, they have still managed to keep themselves out of focus.
This is something in a class all its own. Would that be to make?
Right, and this. I mean, if you've studied this as like we have, we have, we pay particular attention to certain characteristics about this light, and one of them, like I say, is this red and blue shifting, that seems to take place. Although you can see other color hues in there and so forth, but this is very specific where you see complete sides of the object, and I think that you can go down. You can go down a rabbit hole the wrong way, and it's you're digging up something that I don't think sheds any more light on what we're trying to discover here, and certainly doesn't help towards any kind of disclosure of any. So I wanted to say something on the last person
that's interesting. And now I think we've reached what may become the most important section of the entire discussion here, the FAA ground stop and the February shootdowns. This is where his entire theory either begins to stand or begins to wobble. Everything hinges on one question: were these independent events, or were they all manifestations of one continuous phenomena? That's what I want to look into right now.
The official timeline is at 2:28 p.m. is the time recorded in official FAA notices when the system stopped processing new updates. However, I do not agree with this narrative. I believe the NOTAM system was fine and the damaged file narrative never happened, or the orbs pulsed the NOTAM servers. The emergency NOTAM outage hotline was activated at 6:47 p.m. Advisory 004. I recorded the object float over me at 6:56 p.m. 9 minutes later. At 7:20 p.m., 24 minutes after my sighting, the FAA issued Advisory 006. This one activated the nationwide emergency NOTAM outage hotline. The full nationwide ground stop came 11 hours 19 minutes later at 6:15 a.m. Central Time. I had no idea any of this was happening when I saw it. I only learned about the outage months later. A total nationwide NOTAM system failure forcing a complete domestic flight freeze had never happened in American history due to a technical glitch.
I'll list what is strongly supported. An F-16 collided with an airborne object on January 19, 2023. The object was described as mostly white and orange. The impact occurred approximately 1,745 feet above the Barry Goldwater Range. The object was never publicly identified with certainty. We don't know what hit the jet. The final investigation conclusions remain redacted, and Arizona military training areas experienced other unauthorized or unexplained drone encounters. What I find provisionally supported now at this point is that Dead Fish Cheese Spread filed a MUFON report before public reporting of the F-16 incident, and that report may have described an orange object before he could have known the Arizona description. What the MUFON filing could establish, a dated MUFON report could provide excellent contemporaneous evidence that Dead Fish Cheese Spread described the object before learning about the F-16 incident. Now that matters greatly. Suppose the report filed January 15th genuinely says orange and white, fire-like, solid or crystal-like, silent, low altitude, distinctive shape, stuff like that. Then nobody could reasonably argue that he modified his description afterward to resemble the Arizona report. What this would establish is his account predates public reporting about the F-16 event.
These are the beginning few sentences from his MUFON report. The whole report will be out in a new documentary, so keep an eye out for it. The report, dated January 12th, 2023, reads as follows. I was in my yard when I looked up and saw a bright orange light heading my way. At first, I thought it was a shooting star or a meteor that was coming into the atmosphere. But then I realized it wasn't. It was still about a quarter mile away from me at this time, and it was low. It was heading directly toward me. I immediately ran and got my phone, turned on my camera, and ran to my side yard to get a better video. I had the camera on, and it was now going directly over my house.
But I make no apologize.
The FAA log categorized it as an orange-white UAS, meaning an unmanned aircraft system. But that may represent the reporting category used. But it's fair to say the Alaska object remains considerably less understood publicly than the Chinese spy balloon. That's an evidence-based observation. The balloon narrative, this is where I think Dead Fish Cheese Spread overplays his hand. He says essentially they needed one balloon first, so you would assume everything afterward was balloons. Now, that's a hypothesis. It's an interesting one, but what's the evidence?
Balloon that has equipment. Discovery of the satellite communication module, sensors, other tech from at least 5 American firms inside this balloon to its adversary China, as well as countries as Russia and Iran. We never really got the backstory on the Chinese spy balloon.
You know what? You're right. I owe you an answer on that. I'll get it for you and I'll come back on your show and I'll announce it on your show.
Earlier this year, the nation was captivated by a Chinese spy balloon drifting across North America. Turns out there's more, or is it less, to that story than meets the eye.
It was surely the most bizarre crisis of the Biden administration. America's top-of-the-line jet fighters, seen here in routine training, sent up to shoot down, of all things, a balloon.
At Safe Aerospace, we have some really interesting reports about those supposed Chinese balloons that flew over the United States, because some of the air traffic controllers watch these things accelerate to pretty rapid speeds. and make some pretty aggressive maneuvers. And we're going to be sharing that for the first time.
The People's Republic Liberation Army, the People's Liberation Army Aerospace Program.
Very interesting. Any other air traffic controller reports that you want to discuss before we maybe move on to your flying?
Well, the big one that,
Oh, yes. Yeah.
yeah, we can't, we'd be remiss to not talk about that one, because that was the most unexplainable one that I, in my career, I think. We started having these, and, the media would have you, or the government, I don't know who was, putting out the narrative, but somebody was implying that we only had one balloon that was slowly drifting across the United States that all the pilots were seeing. But it was many silver objects. And, the one that they shot down off the coast of North Carolina, I think, it was a white, patched together.
Yeah.
I don't know what they threw up there to shoot down, but but that didn't look anything like the pictures that, some pilots had taken. Obviously they didn't have great cameras, but they were zooming in on their cell phones, and, they were all describing it as a very shiny silver object, and they were seeing it for miles and miles around.
What the hell did you just say?
So all right, this is fascinating. So let's stop for a second. So what we're talking about now, there was kind of two incidences that occurred. There was the Chinese balloon incident kind of kicked everything off, where I think folks in Montana started publicly taking photos of something.
A large, high-altitude balloon, supposedly as large as 3 school buses, crossed the Pacific Ocean, Alaska, and Canada, without a single civilian or pilot reporting it, until, almost on cue, a former local news photographer snaps a picture of it just 180 miles southeast of Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana. From there, it becomes the biggest story on every news channel in the world, floating slowly across America in plain sight before being spectacularly shot down in a massive explosion right off the coast of South Carolina.
This is an interesting question here. Now, I know Micah Hanks, a friend of yours and also on the debrief, called me because I was right underneath the Chinese balloon when it was shot down, which was just crazy timing. So here's the question here. Do you know anything about what was recovered from the February 2023 shoot down in the Yukon?
So we don't know if anything was recovered. What I did hear on some intel chat, though, that when it was shot down, it shattered like glass instantly. Yeah, wow. That it just went into just shattered so fast. But it
really,
but that none of that's confirmed. But it
really,
and if the debris shattered like glass, but it
really,
you would. Yeah. You'd be maybe find remnants here and there if you're out there for hours or weeks or months. But it
really,
but it would if it was big debris pieces, you would think that we would have had or seen that, or other people would have gotten pieces at some point in time. But mind you, very cold. It's not, but it's freezing in the Yukon, so it would be really hard to get a crash recovery. You could do it, but it would take a long time as well.
Yeah, and for what? Really, and for what?
But
it's
not it's crashing over. Yeah, it's
really what?
And sort of deflate like a lighter than air object would deflate. It broke apart. So very curious, anomalous, and unexplained.
But it doesn't matter what gets proven later. He saw a balloon get shot down. Did he see a Made in China tag on it? How does he actually know where it came from? It came down in pieces. Little does he know he got fooled by a balloon, the oldest trick in the book, literally. While a balloon was indeed destroyed right in front of his eyes, not one of the people who saw it knows its true origin. They simply repeated the official narrative.
And then it was tracked, became a news article, or, a big news thing. And then eventually it was shot down off the eastern seaboard somewhere. And then I think, was it a couple weeks later, there was a number of other shoot downs, or a week later?
So I heard that there was other shoot downs, but I don't There was another one a few weeks later that was over Montana. I heard there was one in Alaska.
Yeah.
But I don't have a lot of firsthand on those except for the Montana one, because they did tell us, hey, we're gonna, we had to sterilize a piece of airspace because they said they were gonna go shoot down, another one that was floating over Montana.
So this is all in the time period where, we saw in the news a Chinese balloon. So you're saying during that time, your net was telling you that, hey, they were seeing not just that object, but many objects that were spherical, metal spheres essentially,
right,
over the continental United States.
Yeah.
And for what?
Well, yeah, that's definitely a different narrative than I think what most people understood about that.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the pilots were reporting. That's what all the controllers were hearing. And then they're drifting along. That I still am like blown away by the images that we got on the radar of this thing drifting along. It's drifting along. It was at 28 knots, and then it accelerated and turned away, and went an incredible rate of speed to the northwest.
What did you say?
So this aircraft, whatever this thing was, when it turned and it was going 28 knots and ended at 672 knots is the last update that we got on it before it disappeared off our radar. And that was, they had actually taken and tracked that target. So they had balloon, written in the data block, and it was tracking this balloon that was drifting along. And the controller was briefing another controller that's taking over, and hey, this here balloon, they think it's around 45,000, but we're not sure if that, altitude's accurate at all. Anyway, he starts telling him, he goes, I'm going to get back to that. And he starts telling him about other stuff that's going on. And he goes, oh, wait, that's weird. And he goes, oh, that's really weird. Because the balloon had made a U-turn, and it was accelerating every hit. It was, went from 28 knots to 98 to, I've got them wrote down back here if you want to grab it.
Yeah, we could probably do some math on that.
All right. The first update was 28 knots. The next one was 67, then 97, then 229, then 398, and then 643 knots.
Wow.
And so
exponential acceleration.
Yeah. So I put it into, to AI and said, hey, if this is averaging the last 5 hits, what is the actual speed on our last update? And it said, it was 1,253 knots, I think, and 1,252 knots, and miles per hour. That's 1,441 miles per hour.
So stationary to that speed in about
it was a minute.
A minute.
Yeah.
1 minute.
Yeah, because five radar rotations in a minute.
Yeah. Just to be clear, that is faster than F-18.
Well, if that, and I plugged in and said, what if that acceleration had continued at 200? The next 4 hits, so less than a minute. Another, what was that? 47 seconds later, that aircraft, if it continued to accelerate, because we lost it on radar at that point, right? Mm-hmm. So if it continued to accelerate at that rate in less than a minute, it would have been 2,222 knots, which I'd have to plug it into my calculator to figure out what that is in miles per hour. But you're talking, you're getting closer to 2,600 miles per hour, I think.
But really, and for what?
Wow.
Yeah, we tracked SR-71s, and they were going, Mach 3.
And also, hard to believe they didn't recover anything, but that's what they say.
Okay, I actually too questioned that there was no recovery. It's been quite clear from one of the locals who videoed what was going on the ground that at best, I think the White House has been misled about what the conditions were like up there in Alaska on the day, because what we've seen is video showing very clear skies and very, very thick sea ice. Apparently, one of the explanations was that the object, if it did fall, fell through the sea ice and disappeared into the ocean underneath. And a number of locals I've spoken to have told me that that's just not plausible because the ice was so thick at the time.
I am as close as you can get on land to the location of the object that was shot down by the U.S. military on the north coast of Alaska. So this is all ice, actually, sea ice right here. This is the Arctic Ocean. And I'll show a little picture of the flight tracker of the C-130 that's burning circles out here over the ice, over what we presume is the location of this object. I'll put that on the screen so you guys can see it, and I'll put a little red dot for as close as I can get to it and show you where I'm at. Obviously the sea ice is pretty thick, so anything they shot down over there should be recoverable. My coworkers have heard jets flying over, and we've seen a Black Hawk helicopter fly out over the ice, so they're definitely out there somewhere. This is what it looks like. It's about 17 below and kind of cloudy, but they'll find whatever it is, I'm sure.
I agree with you. I find it bewildering that they're not able to release any of the imagery from these fighter jet engagements with these objects, because frankly, you could drive a bus through the holes in the explanation that's been somewhat weakly offered by the White House that these kind of must be balloons, these three objects. I have a feeling that there's more to the Alaska objects.
Then broke apart, and then the recovery was unsuccessful.
5-6 miles, that C-130 flew directly that way, 5-6 miles that way out over the ice. That's where this activity's going on. Crazy.
Okay, live above Prudhoe Bay. What the fuck is going on around here, dude?
Look at that shit. There is some crazy crap going on around here.
But what's the evidence?
When I came into office, I instructed our intelligence community to take a broad look at the phenomenon of unidentified aerial objects.
But it wasn't spying.
I would say it was a spy balloon that we know with high degree of certainty got no intelligence and didn't transmit any intelligence back to China.
We don't yet know exactly what these three objects were, but nothing right now suggests they were related to China's spy balloon program or that they were surveillance vehicles from any other country.
Remember when that spy balloon, the Chinese spy balloon, crossed the United States of America and the Americans shot it down? Remember that one? Yeah. That's spy balloons, the evil Chinese spy balloons. Well, that was a lie. The Americans are saying it right now. So what are we going to do now? All those people who sucked so much, okay, now should go over there and continue to suck it, because they like it seems like. So let me show you this little article here, coming from the evil Russia Today, from the 17th of September 2023. Chinese quote-unquote spy balloon wasn't spying. U.S. military chief. U.S. intelligence agencies now believe, after 1,000 years, that the mysterious craft really was blown off course, as the Chinese said. Mark Milley, below 86 IQ, but he's in charge, told ABC News. So now what? I want to hear all those guys who continue that garbage without knowing, without evidence, claiming it was a spy balloon, the Chinese, let's boom, 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 the Chinese, I want to see them now going and apologizing and shut the fuck up. All right? I mean, you lost your, how should I put it, any credibility that you might have still had.
Which would not only protect civilians, but also enable us to recover substantial components for further for further analytics.
I think shockingly, when the balloon was recovered, it had American-made component parts in there with English on that. It was made, parts made in America that were put on a spy balloon from China. I don't think the American people accept that.
The intelligence community's current assessment is that these three objects were most likely balloons tied to private companies, recreation or research institutions studying weather or conducting other scientific research.
For that matter, why is so much of what the government knows about the supposed balloon shootdowns over the continental USA last year still so highly classified, especially that Alaska object, which I do believe was anomalous?
So there have been a number of balloons that have flown in various parts of the globe.
What other parts of the United States have Chinese balloons overflown?
Well, you've heard us say earlier that there were 3 incidents a couple of years ago that balloons overflew parts of the U.S., and so I'll just leave it at that.
We'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Which parts?
Well, we know that Texas and Florida, there were parts of Texas and Florida that the balloon flew over.
What the did you just say?
The Canadian Defense Ministry yesterday said they were tracking a second potential spy balloon. Are you tracking a second potential incident?
Thanks, Idris. So on your first question, we are tracking one balloon.
One thing almost everyone overlooks, the military itself admitted they changed radar filters after the Chinese balloon. And that matters. This is big because before the radar system was told to ignore slow objects, but they changed that filter and now it tracks slow objects. So what would naturally happen? Of course, you suddenly discover many more slow objects. And that's what happened.
Industry, science, and technology. Big men putting screwdrivers into things, turning them, and adjusting them. Build your own atom storage box.
When President Biden called those objects harmless hobby balloons, BYP bought the government's cover story, repeating the Air Force's line that they were just filtering out low-speed radar clutter.
Our airspace, including enhancing our radar to pick up more slow-moving objects above our country, around the world.
Except military radar was already tracking and chasing those exact targets weeks before any radar settings were ever changed. That cover story collapses on the military's own timeline. Weeks before those filter adjustments were announced, an F-22 pilot out of Eglin Air Force Base locked onto 4 objects in a diamond formation over the Gulf of Mexico. When he closed to 4,000 feet to check out the glowing orange orb, the instant the jet reached that range, an electrical circuit breaker tripped inside the plane, cutting power and disabling the onboard radar for the rest of the flight. This is the same object Matt Gaetz described under oath during congressional testimony as something beyond any human capability.
The image was of something that I am not able to attach to any human capability, either from the United States or from any of our adversaries. And I'm somewhat informed on the matter, having served on the Armed Services Committee for 7 years, having served on the committee that oversees DARPA and advanced technologies for several years. One of the pilots goes to check out that diamond formation and sees a large floating, what I can only describe as an orb. Again, like I said, not of any human capability that I'm aware of.
Actually, I just want to mention something. I got a tip overnight. One of the stories that's been surfacing is the story about Eglin Air Force Base, and I notice AARO, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, recently announced in its historical review report that a sighting that allegedly took place in January 2023 by a jet fighter pilot out of Eglin Air Force Base over the Gulf of Mexico, where he allegedly saw an Apollo command module acorn-shaped object. The AARO, the Pentagon's UFO investigation office, categorically denied that there was video of that incident. And very, very interestingly, there's an FOI I've just tweeted about where a guy has obtained paperwork from the US Air Force confirming there is video. Somebody's lying. And I know they're lying because overnight I've just received information telling me that the Air Force is reluctant to admit that there is video because the video came from their latest F-22 Raptor fighter. And there were 2 fighters, I'm told, on location that were there when this object was seen. And there is video. It's being declined for national security reasons. Yet AARO tries to make us believe this is a balloon. Utter BS. I'm calling it out. It's a flat-out lie. There's an incident that one of your colleagues, Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz, was involved in investigating back in middle last year. there was an incident that took place off the coast of Florida, I think in the Gulf of Mexico. He saw what he describes as something that looked cone-shaped, shaped essentially like a command module from the Apollo missions, hovering in the air.
Over 150 feet above them, the family saw a bright green light shaped like a large upside-down ice cream cone.
No, it hasn't.
An inverted cone type thing.
Simultaneously, military radar was already tracking these targets and chasing them up to the Arctic Circle. They didn't discover background clutter through a software tweak. They were already following them.
Even before the Chinese balloon on the 4th of February that was shot down. Multiple sources have told me that there were 8 or 9 unidentified objects detected somewhere near the Arctic Circle, out over the sea ice, and that fighter jets were deployed from NORAD to engage with those objects, and that they were seen to maneuver away, apparently at high speed. Have you heard those allegations? I've heard it now from 3 different people.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing.
If those open settings were catching routine background clutter, why haven't they spotted or shot down a single weather balloon since? Universities and weather services launch balloons every single day.
This entire investigation so far, I would honestly say the South Texas sighting gets 4 stars out of 5. So the overall verdict, the Arizona incident is genuine and interesting. Dead fish cheese spread deserves credit for noticing the chronological and color resemblance, but the video transforms a mostly white and orange unidentified impact object. Could have been a bird.
BYP tries to dismiss the FAA's UAS label as just a broad database category, but if it was a bird strike, the FAA maintains a dedicated National Wildlife Strike database under Form 5207. If there was any reason to log a bird, that exact code was ready to go. They officially logged it as a UAS.
The orange and white object caused so much damage that the jet had to land, is what he said. The military report says the pilots found no damage during their airborne check and no damage was evident after landing. So this is not merely an interpretation difference that we're seeing here. This is a factual contradiction. But it didn't cause any damage to the craft.
And according to the War Zone, here's a screenshot of the article, this impact fractured the fighter's reinforced canopy with enough force to compromise the aircraft's integrity, requiring extensive repairs before returning to service.
The UFO caused so much damage to the $60 million jet that it was forced to land.
From an orange and white UAS to a bird, from damage to no damage, while key details remain redacted. The event happened inside the Barry M. Goldwater Range, one of the most restricted and monitored pieces of airspace in the world.
Barry M. Goldwater Range, where the most modern U.S. military jets pierce the clouds, practicing air-to-air combat and bombing targets on the ground. It's restricted airspace reserved only for military aircraft. But during a 3-month period early last year, something else was sharing the skies with those fighter pilots. Something that was not supposed to be out. Officials from Luke Air Force Base and the Goldwater Range say they are not authorized to talk about what happened out here. And we're still waiting for some other records from a different Air Force department.
That's interesting.
The president also instructed the intelligence community to take a broad look at the phenomenon of unidentified aerial objects. Indeed, President Biden conducted the first ever daily intelligence briefing session devoted to this phenomenon back in June of 2021. He was briefed that this is not just an issue for the United States, but one for the rest of the world. And as I said, our friends and our partners are dealing with this as well. Chinese spy balloon, we knew exactly what that thing was.
The balloon, can you say definitively it was not a balloon?
I don't, at this point, considering the fact that we're still assessing the object, I don't want to get into characterizing it, so just leave it at that. We're going to judge each of these on its merits.
We have to judge each case by its own merit.
Now, Dead Fish Cheese Spread does have a short video of the Black Vault YouTube video showing that he could not get FOIA documents.
What are your thoughts about the Alaska recovery in 2023? I'm guessing you're talking about the balloon that was shot down?
What, balloon? You serious? Don't say that out loud.
So is there evidence that someone did get them? Yes, both of these are true, but they're talking about different FOIA requests. What John Greenwald of the Black Vault could not get, he filed FOIA requests specifically for the February 2023 shootdowns, the Alaska, Yukon, and Lake Huron incidents. The Air Force denied the release of all photos and videos under FOIA Exemption 1, classified national security information. John published the denial letter and appealed it. So if Dead Fish Cheese Spread shows John's video saying I couldn't get the FOIA records, that's accurate for those records.
I've gone after documents, very, very hard to get. I'm super intrigued by that. I mean, obviously there's some kind of secrecy to, you know, spy balloons and spy tech and what our enemies are doing to us. And we don't want to release too much about what we know and what we've captured. And so there's a lot at play at those. So it's super intriguing, the levels of secrecy. My whole point is that there's certain aspects that they'll talk about, and then there's other things that they're just completely shut down. I think that there's a lot more there than what they want us to believe, but I believe that I still have open cases. Some were denied on the recovery of some of those balloons, but after all this time, they're still open, and I filed around the time it all happened. The secrecy is weird, you know? So I'm eager to see how it all plays out.
For example, over the Crimea, there's been, over the ocean, US drones were interfered with by Russian jets that were committing quite appalling acts of interference with US military technology. And the Pentagon was very, very quick to release that imagery, albeit imagery that no doubt revealed the capabilities of those US drones. Isn't that a precedent that perhaps undermines the idea that's being pushed by the Pentagon that there's somehow something about these images from these shootdowns that can't be released?
I sure hope they're not going to try and cover that one up, because it's not going to go well.
Journalists did obtain some FOIA records, however, for January 19, 2023, the Arizona F-16 collision. They did obtain records through FOIA. The War Zone obtained FAA logs and later Air Force safety reports through FOIA documenting the F-16's collision with an orange-white object, a UAS. Later reporting used these released documents to describe what the Air Force report had said about the collision. So, likewise, the Black Vault itself has published other UAP documents obtained through FOIA. For example, a different 2023 pilot encounter over the Gulf of Mexico, where researchers successfully obtained Air Force records while other materials like video did remain withheld. Some FOIA requests succeeded while others failed. The Black Vault was denied access to imagery and videos from the February 2023 shootdowns, but other researchers and journalists successfully obtained FAA logs and Air Force safety documents relating to the January 19th Arizona F-16 collision. Both are accurate and fair to everybody involved. So, one thing I'm starting to appreciate is that Dead Fish Cheese Spread sometimes compresses different government events into one story.
Thank you, Professor. I think that is a compliment. The professor claims there's a contradiction because the Arizona Freedom of Information Act, or FOIA records, were released while the Alaska FOIA requests were stonewalled and denied. He asks, if the government is covering things up, why did they approve Arizona? What I believe you are missing is that the Arizona object and what was shot down in Alaska are the same thing. What the report doesn't say is the UAS that hit the jet that day, it didn't crash, it continued flying. That orb was spotted over the military base again the very next day. From there, it continued its journey north to the Arctic Circle. Air Force jets were scrambled to locate 8 objects that were spotted on NORAD radar. The only problem is that the moment the fighter jets arrived, the objects flashed off the screen and vanished. Days later, near Deadhorse, Alaska, an F-22 engaged it, fired a missile and shot it down. Reports said it shattered like glass upon impact with the ground. However, I believe the true story is that it shattered like glass when it was hit with a missile, not when it hit the ground. This is because it's a crystal, like my theory suggests. That is why I asked John Greenwald about Alaska. That's where it was shot down. The government released the Arizona FOIAs because the orb wasn't there. It was in Alaska, and that's why John Greenwald couldn't get them. But even if he could get them, they would be highly redacted.
It goes into a collapse like it does, like that. So it just pulls into itself. So it actually is like kind of pancaking in a way. All right. Flexible material. UAP, non-flexible material. Extremely rigid, extremely strong. What is it made of? Don't know. All I can just tell you is that this is not a flexible balloon.
As one of the pilots finally gets close, he reports.
It didn't look like a bird. It looked like them getting a rock to me.
To support deliberate psychological conditioning, here's the kind of stuff we would have to have. Internal government communications. Do we have any planning documents or testimony from participants themselves?
I went into the hearing with the impression that 2 weeks ago our skies were clear. And then all of a sudden, we had spy balloons and other identified objects raining down on us like confetti. That's not accurate. This has been going on for a long time.
There's a number of unanswered questions that it's reasonable they're unanswered. We didn't build complex and expensive radar systems to pick up slow-moving balloons.
I wasn't unnerved by anything that I heard. I don't think we're being attacked by aliens.
On the F-16 incident, I said the incident wasn't reported for about 2 years. I personally didn't see any coverage until Christina Gomez reported on it roughly 1.5 to 2 years later. That is when I found out about it. No major news companies mentioned it that I was aware of.
Coming clean about what it knows about UFOs. There's a new report by the Federal Aviation Administration that admits in 2023 an orange and white UFO crashed into an Air Force fighter jet during a routine training mission. The UFO caused so much damage to the $60 million jet that it was forced to land.
So the time compression in the 5-second video. Dead fish cheese spread remembers recording much longer than the saved clip, and he now proposes that the craft itself compressed time. He perceived the object moving slowly. The camera recorded it moving quickly. Only a few seconds of video remained. Therefore, the propulsion system altered time. Now, this is ingenious. I've got to hand it to him. He's not just bluffing here, making stuff up.
Many
You've
times.
actually told me, hey, this stuff messes with your equipment.
And how this ended was a mind blower. I'm so glad that I have a chance to let you see this. Now you're starting to see an 8-point, like this 2 squares, which is one on top of the other and rotated a little bit. This whole event only lasted 1 minute and 13 seconds. I thought it lasted a lot longer. I'll explain that in a minute. I thought I filmed it for about 20 minutes. And when I got the footage inside after I had lost it, I had 1 minute and 13 seconds worth of footage. And I'm like, what? What? Oh man, I was like freaked out. It was like, but what happened is it actually shut my camera down and show you what this thing ended up looking like, and this is all within seconds. You see that image right there?
Mm-hmm.
That is an 8-point star. But anyway, it got to the very end, and where this ends is where this is the first time I've ever had an interaction with one of these. And I know for sure it turned off my camera because my battery was dead right here. You watching it? That's it. That's how it ended.
Now, do you think it shut off your camera just because it was putting out a general signal, or it was specifically aiming at your camera?
It had to be something like that, because I've never had that happen except one other time. It was a red sphere coming, and it actually did turn my camera off on that one. But in this one, I thought my camera kept running. I was out there 20 minutes doing what we just looked at, and I thought there was way more. But the next night, when I brought the camera out, when I turned it on, the battery was dead. That's when I noticed the battery was dead. I could tell you, when I'm watching this thing and I know what I was looking at, would never, ever turn my camera off. I would never turn it off under a situation like that.
So one person's recollection of filming duration and one phone clip do not constitute a time dilation measurement.
Thanks, Captain Obvious.
For instance, you miss the focus, or you get motion blur, low light, zoom, sensor noise, image stabilization, atmospheric turbulence, overexposure, compression. Before invoking space-time curvature, these other rather normal blasé explanations must be tested and eliminated.
Are they? I don't know that they are.
It would not merely make the craft fuzzy. Depending on its strength and geometry, one might expect measurable effects upon nearby matter, or else trajectories, clocks, people, structures, instruments, all kinds of stuff.
Why should I name them? Why don't you name them?
Where he talks about them hopping through time and space, and not just hopping through space in the way that we normally, kind of a Jacques Vallée style. Like, these things aren't just traversing through space like, in traditional rocketry. There are other effects in physics where you can't quite explain it in the current model, but they are harbingers, if you will, of the next paradigm. I believe that when you find an anomaly, it is pointing towards the next scientific paradigm. Black body radiation is a great example. It was discovered in the 1870s by a guy named Gustav Kirchhoff. We could not explain it until the quantum revolution with Max Planck, where he, actually discovered quanta. The orbit of Mercury is another good example, where we didn't understand, we couldn't calculate Mercury's orbit until we had space-time curvature in Einstein. So Newton didn't quite explain it. So my belief is the Byfield-Brown effect is an anomaly that seemed to ostensibly, visually unify the field. Or it's pointing towards something else, gravitational shielding, or it's pointing towards Hal Puthoff's stuff around, quantum vacuum fluctuations. I don't know. I don't have a great theory for how it works. I don't think Brown had an amazing theory for how it works, but it's an effect that I think creates this tech tree of exotic electromagnetic propulsion that leads us to today. It's an effect that's not supposed to happen. And he's the most senior guy in electrostatics. And he says this is not a conventional electrostatic force. And he attributes his work to Townsend Brown. I could show you in an interview. He literally says Townsend Brown was like the first guy to discover this. He's updated it a bit. He says that it's not just sheer voltage. You don't need to use megavoltage, and actually electric field strength is the most important thing. So we use kilovolts, and he amps up the electric field strength in order to get more thrust. But he has a whole company around this. It's called Exodus Space.
So some of those descriptions come from interviews and secondary reporting rather than the initial Pentagon briefing. So we should carefully distinguish between what was officially stated at the time and what emerged later through interviews and reporting. That's interesting.
Now here's a quick explanation of this man's UFO sighting. It was on the night of January 10th, 2023, 6:56 p.m. And on this particular evening, he He was standing there in his backyard. A tiny orange dot appears way off in the distance. At first he thinks it's a shooting star, but this thing doesn't burn out or zip across the sky like they usually do. It just kept coming towards him, and it's getting closer and bigger. And now he's thinking, well, that's odd. Shooting stars don't usually do that. What the f***? And then the panic sets in. Is this thing coming right at me? Wait, no, maybe it's a helicopter on fire coming in for a crash landing. He lives on the approach path of a small dirt runway airport with about 10 barndominium hangars on it. The second that thought hit him, another one followed quick on its heels. Get this on video. He knew exactly where his phone was. He ran and grabbed it, turned on the camera, and hit record. From the moment of decision to confirmed recording, 10 seconds. Everything snapped into place perfectly. Now the object was across the street over his neighbour's yards. It was about to cross the street and pass directly over his house. At this point, he was still thinking this was going to be a helicopter on fire. Then it was over his house, 150 feet up, and moving roughly 150 miles an hour. And he finally got a clear look. What he saw was like nothing he had ever seen or ever could have imagined. He could see individual crystals, their exact arrangement. He deliberately told himself, remember this, it was covered in flames and the flames were orange. Pure orange. Only orange. No reds, no blues, no other color at all. He had never seen flames like these. That mental note is still burned into his mind to this very day. The flames themselves did not behave like a normal fire. They were jagged, locked to the contours of the crystals. The crystals also glowed the same pure orange. But the strangest detail of all, the flames burned upside down, straight down toward the ground. They didn't try to curve upward. Nope, they burned inverted. Not like a jet flame either, more like a small campfire 3 to 4 feet across, turned completely upside down, with roughly 200 pounds of glowing orange crystals. He says there were about 20 individual crystals, arranged a specific way, where the wood should have been. That is exactly what he saw, that is exactly what he recorded, and that is exactly what it was, a crystal core plasma motor. He will never forget a single detail of it.
Certain crystals, that includes quartz, are piezoelectric. But what piezoelectricity does not mean, it does not mean that a crystal continuously produces free energy. That's not what it's doing. It doesn't cancel gravity. It doesn't levitate heavy objects. It doesn't bend space-time. It doesn't produce unlimited voltage without an input. It doesn't create a propulsion field merely by glowing either. None of that is ever produced or has ever been produced so far through crystal quartz technology.
What do you mean by that?
When you first hear it, it sounds crazy, I get that. But human history is full of things that sounded impossible right up until someone figured out how they work. Nothing in science was ever understood until someone first dared to look at it. Just because current mainstream theory hasn't explained these structures doesn't mean we know everything, or that certain properties haven't been overlooked. The fact remains, that is what it is, like it or not. When thousands of witnesses worldwide describe seeing diamond or crystal-shaped objects, ignoring that volume of data isn't skepticism, it's just choosing not to look. I saw this object up close and I know what was observed, a crystal core wrapped in a plasma layer. That is what it was, period. If you take the time to actually listen to the sheer volume of matching reports out there, maybe you'll reconsider your stance. That would be the wise thing to do.
So just the fact that they're all lighting up says something about its resonant properties. I bet you this particular RAV, however it's configured, would probably...
It looked like it was made of very beautiful crystals. Like not crystals, it wasn't plural. It was like one object. It looked like some from a sci-fi movie, but it was like glowing and it was like kind of changing.
Yeah, okay. Let's see. This is from Orange Orbs, which matches this question. I saw...
Dead Fish says, real quick, at 1:24, Matt Ford and Sarah Gam. Okay, let me see. I can find that, sure. Let me see. Matt Ford and Sarah Gam. I like when people do this, right? Awesome, that is me, says Orange Orbs. Very nice.
Let's see. This is from Orange Orbs, which matches this question. I saw an orb closely, and I believe it is made of crystals. Sarah also said she thought they were crystals. Does she still believe that? I'm not sure what he's referring to, or she.
Yeah, no, I totally have. Thank you.
Nice. First of all, nice one, Orange Orb. Hell yeah. Okay, that gets an applause. That is very cool. Hold on, I have to press the button. Respect, bro. That's huge. That's pretty good. Professional, man. That's very professional. I love that. It's a good job. Don't think we need to listen to her answer. Did you see that smile? 100%. Yeah, well done. Well done. Good job. That Fish posted it, and then Orange Orbs, they must be teaming up in chat right now. What's going on? She's very happy about this question. Okay, I guess let's listen to her reply. I want to hear what she has to say.
Yeah, no, I totally have. Thank you for that question. I have bounced around between thinking, yes, there's some sort of like crystal maybe we don't have on this planet, or maybe we don't know how to utilize them in that form, or like a plasma type energy.
I knew she's going to go to plasma. She just had to move over to plasma. That's where you have to go when you talk about orbs. So she was confused by the crystal approach. She was like, yeah, crystal. Love it, though. Masterpiece. It's a masterpiece. It's a portfolio piece. Okay, so well done. I never said plasma. That's right. She should have stuck on the crystals. I was the same. Like, explain to me how crystals are going to hover in the air and make orbs. Can you please just go into a bit more depth there? Plasmoids. That's right. Sheer madness. You're exactly right. That's what it is. They're plasmoids, but they are also made from crystals. So good stuff, man. Good job, Orange Orbs. It's a masterpiece. Well done. A little clip for you guys here with the lady that talks about crystals.
Like a plasma type energy that I can't talk about in too depth on. I do still stand by that some of them are crystals. I do think they're not all the same material. And I know there's different colors. I've seen orange and I've also seen blue, and one of them that kind of turned from like a blue to, of course, like blue and purple are really close on the visible spectrum, right? They overlap. So it kind of like morphed into a couple of those colors. Yes, some of them are definitely crystal.
Okay.
Pull up her resume. I'm not pulling up her resume. We're done with it. We're going to talk about Lou Elizondo next, okay?
Crystals, and then there is a craft just floating there. It is a saucer, almost like a top-shaped craft, but there's paneling removed from the bottom where he sees, similar, I know how interested you are in Bob Lazar, an inverted cone type thing. He doesn't know what this is, no idea, but it's like an inverted triangle cone that seems to be free-floating in the bottom little jutting out part of the saucer.
To me, watchmen, come with me, and we were in a circular room. And there were a lot of cylinders about 4.5 feet high and about 2 feet wide that circled the whole room. And it had sort of like a cable running through it, 2 cables running through these. They looked like tall batteries to me. And then in the center of this room was a huge cocoon, or, like this shaped object.
An inverted cone type thing.
Was spinning, and it was giving off colors like the rainbow. I said, what is this? And he said, this is how our craft operates. And he said it operates on electrical reversible magnetism. And this glass sheet came down. And we stepped onto this, which I felt. And we moved up into the second level of the craft. And lo and behold, I've never seen anything like it before in my life, with so many different types of instrument panels and computer type things that you just wouldn't believe it. This cone thing was right in the center of the floor. You could see half of it from on top and half of it from the bottom, but it gave off a red glow that sort of not flashed, but kind of died down and then came back up again. The purpose that we're here is to get electricity.
And this spike that was extending out of the lower, smaller orb was getting longer, and it was kind of shaking as it came out. It was like both orbs were, if you ever watched the documentary about space, and sometimes they show you just a close-up of the sun.
Type thing.
And ask yourself, what could this be? And, narrow it down to really being confident that this is something that's unexplainable. But what I was watching, I was like, for sure, this is an orb. It was like a big white ball of fire almost.
Type thing.
And it's sped up, so you can see all of this movement of the whatever it's made out of, this undulating movement. It was like that. They were like mini suns, but they were moving very fast, and the edges of them.
It was just as you see it right there. It looked like a mini sun.
They didn't actually have sparks jumping off them, but it was like a contained kind of spark to the edges of them. So the impression I got from them was that they were extremely energetic, and my instinctive reaction was to keep driving and get some distance away from them. And this spike that was extending out of the lower one was particularly disturbing. I didn't want to hang around to see how long that spike got. Fiery, kind of plasma-like, spinning top-shaped craft.
The people in the program had this thing. They called it a relic. And sitting at the center of the coffee table, it's a literal crystal orb, but the inside of this orb was alive.
Whoa.
And as I locked eye contact with it, the inside structure, it adapts and it like changes.
Oh my God.
And it's almost as if this object, as I'm looking at it, is now looking back at me, right?
Was a 300-foot object, horizontally oriented and irregular, white and translucent, with a slight shimmer in the sun. He estimates the sighting lasted 30 to 120 seconds. As they watched, angular panels across its surface articulated at their joints, pulsing slowly and irregularly, like a series of hinges. The object made no sound. It didn't drift, then it was simply gone. No one saw it move or dissolve away. The witnesses looked around 360 degrees across the sky, but saw nothing, not even a cloud.
What did you see?
It's hard to describe. Even now, just a few years later, it was unlike anything that I frankly could have made up. And I'm not the most creative person, but it was a massive, perfectly still elliptical object. And the stillness was just shocking. Like it was almost tied to a fixed point in space. If I were to guess, and this is hard to say, 6 miles away, but I would guess maybe 300 feet at least, elliptical like this, white in color, comprised of these uniform panels that seemed to be all pentagons, but were all irregularly shaped. They were joined at the seams, the linear seams, and these irregularly shaped but uniform in area pentagonal panels were like a mother of pearl or a white ceramic color. And it was a perfect sunny Colorado bluebird day, 50 degrees, not a cloud in the sky. And you could see these panels move as they kind of glisten in the sun.
What did you call the object? What was your nickname for it?
So we didn't have a nickname. Maybe we'll get into it a little bit later, but Arrow, their office nickname for this object was the crystalline potato.
Crystalline potato.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It didn't seem like it was made of crystal, but it did have a kind of a reflection to it.
Crystals. Now keep in mind that he saw it from 6 miles away and I saw it from 150 feet. Big difference there, folks.
And again, they were kind of seamed at the linear edges of all of them. It was in a pattern that just did not make sense. Like because you could tell that there was three-dimensionality to it.
Three-dimensionality.
It was a pattern that was hard to
the
comprehend.
paneling. Forgive me, three-dimensionality to the paneling? Is that what you mean?
To like the skin of the object, to the topography of the exterior of the object itself. Like you could very much tell that the object was three-dimensional and elliptical, but then it had like topography along it. So like kind of peaks and valleys that were comprised of these panels.
So I appreciate the object was 6 miles away. So you made it very clear that you did not think it was a balloon.
No, and I don't think that they thought I thought it was a balloon either.
And you're clear about this. You think it was some kind of technology, advanced technology, from what you saw.
Oh, for sure. And like this thing was beautifully designed, but almost incomprehensible. Like I still don't understand how the pattern of those panels worked, how they rippled, what they were made of. Comprised of these panels that had the peaks and valleys to it that made the shape not perfectly symmetrical.
Kaysen, can you give any explanation, a prosaic explanation for what that object might be? Could it be an aircraft or a helicopter or a drone?
And, I mean, not to my knowledge. And this object is one that has been described to us in several reports, over a dozen, as far as a category goes. And that category is a contained sphere of what is often described as a condensed sun, just a ball of some sort of plasma or energy or light that is either red, like in this example, orange, or a brilliant white.
What's your impression as an extremely highly accredited intelligence officer, former with the US military? What's your impression of what's being seen over the continental United States, even to this day? And should we be concerned about it as a national security issue?
So we don't have any defined conclusions, that's for sure. But just from our vantage point of what we've been reported to, it seems like there's highly likely multiple disparate phenomena occurring. We see a wide gambit of shocking technologies that are observed. We have no assessment of the origins of those technologies, but it's not just, one or two different types of objects. It's pretty encompassing, and their demonstration of technological advancement is profound.
With smaller lights clustering around them and lights forming diamonds or hexagons.
If everybody says, well, it was a diamond shaped and it all rotated in certain color sequence, if they all say the same thing and it's confirmed on airborne and ground radar, then something was physically there.
That's the diamond, John. You see that, right?
Yep. Starting with what witnesses are calling the hovering diamond, the orange diamond that looked like the surface of the sun in Siberia.
Heavens, no. You have done nothing of the sort to establish that.
The witness described a large diamond-shaped disc.
Well, it was, like I say, to me, it was like a diamond shape with flames coming out the bottom, not just massive flames, just the whole thing looked radiated bright orange.
What would you say it looked like to you?
It looked like a diamond.
A diamond? Does it have any lights blinking on and off?
No.
Was it a white light?
No, it looked like fire.
And this time, when I approached with the zoom, I seen a very strange object there, like a diamond, was pulsing.
It appears to be diamond shaped.
Forever burned in my brain what we saw that night. So it was sort of like very elongated front of it, like very pointed. It come down almost like a diamond shape, but the end part was taken away from it. But in this was all cut, almost like ridges in it, like a 3D effect almost.
It was flat on the bottom, and it was a pyramid-shaped looking thing, but there was either heat waves or some kind of a steam or something coming off that it made it kind of it was a solid, a side look, but it looked pitted to me, like it was a pyramid-shaped looking thing, but it was like coral rock on the side, like it's pitted or something similar to that. But
it was diamond in shape. It appeared to be in two halves joined together. The bottom half appeared to be rotating. The top half looked like it was stationary. And it also, I thought it had dark windows, panels, windows that went all the way around.
Kind of diamond-shaped object.
This one really, this one was, I mean, if anybody saw this, you would be shaking because it was just so mind-boggling. I started shaking. It was a diamond-shaped craft.
And enhance it and take a look at it because it is a diamond-shaped object.
Drew closer. The witness could make out a solid silhouette, a diamond-shaped craft.
Almost diamond-shaped as.
And it was close enough that Bill could make out details underneath.
It had kind of a diamond-type crystal right in the middle of the bottom of it that was emitting blue and white reddish lights.
It was like a great big piece of granite. I mean, it was beautiful.
Is there any kind of anomalies with the way light was interacting with the object? Like, was light shining off of it? Was it absorbing the light?
The light was clear enough so I could see the surface. I could see the lines of the creases in it. It had 6 sides, 6 total sides to it.
Crystal habit of quartz is hexagonal. When it is crystalline, it will always, always, always be 6-sided like that.
Like a wedge, almost like a door wedge kind of thing.
Tube, diamond-shaped thing with something underneath it.
Like a marquee diamond laying on its side.
This thing seems to be like a skinny, long diamond.
Okay, class 6. What are we looking at?
So the class 6 is what we call the bright star.
Mm-hmm.
It vibrates a lot, and it does things to our equipment, whether it's shutting off our equipment or interferes in other ways with our equipment, to modify what we think we're seeing. Right. So
there's some signature management.
There's absolutely some signature management with the class 6. So it doesn't like us to track it. Right. It doesn't like us to put eyes on it, we think.
This one had a diamond.
Dead Fish Cheese Spread says, I know Lou knows what it looks like. Okay.
No visible exhaust, rotor wash, or heat distortion is present, leading some to speculate that it uses propulsion technology not yet public.
I know Lou has seen one. He described it exactly as it looked, a diamond. But it says Dead Fish Cheese Spread. That's nice. Dead fish, not the fish. Cheese spread, though, I'm with you there.
But it was a wedge-shaped craft.
Like a wedge, almost like a door wedge kind of thing.
Wedge-shaped. Wedge-shaped.
Like a wedge, almost like a door wedge kind of thing.
Wedge-shaped. Wedge-shaped. Like triangular, but yeah, like a wedge.
Like a wedge, almost like a door wedge kind of thing.
Like I don't know how else to describe it. I could draw it for you if you want. You want to draw it?
Sure, you can.
Yeah. So give me a second.
So just like a wedge that you would split wood with, like that kind of a wedge?
Like a wedge, almost like a door wedge kind of thing.
Yeah, but it was silver metallic, and like a diamond maybe. That's a better way to describe it. Like a diamond almost. And it looked kind of like kind of like that, really. It's just a little.
And that kind of shape is something that's been reported multiple times.
So that was the first time I ever saw something like that.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it was. Keep in mind, I never followed this topic.
It felt like stone because I actually touched it
in the sky, like a diamond shaped.
Could not build silent diamonds that floated on the air.
I looked around a little bit more and I saw that object. It looked like a diamond. It lit up the whole sky.
Shimmering effect around what looked like a diamond. Looking at then is the silhouette of a diamond.
Yeah.
And that's what I first thought was appearing a diamond-shaped craft, but
Diamond-shaped craft have been reported worldwide for decades, often described as silent, dark, and capable of sudden bursts of speed.
This also, just so you understand, dead fish, this is going to go to how you got that picture of the crystal itself shooting off energy. Because of what Joe was doing with the crystal and how it filled the entire crystal structure with light. Well, all that's energy, and all energy is based on the same thing. So, yeah, trust me, your day's coming, man. You got crystals and everything, and we're going to prove out a lot of these theories. We're also going to show when you get to crystals, the oscillator effect and stuff like that. I've been working on circuits for oscillators with crystals. We've cured a lot of problems that go on in circuits. Let me just tell you it that way. So, right on, brother.
Well, we came within contact. There were three objects. We were in the middle of almost like a diamond type of thing.
But noticed that beneath it was a lot of different details, which I hadn't seen on my first observation.
Oh, yeah. So it's like 4 corners that are, the sides are indented.
PC Willie, you were driving the patrol car at the time. Can you describe it to us?
Well, the object was likened unto a cross, although the inner parts were something similar to the points of a compass, and they were quite blurred, the inner parts of the cross.
But it was brilliant white, brilliant light.
How in fact did you see it? I mean, did it make any kind of noise to you?
No, there was no noise. The first time we saw it was when it was just above treetop height and ahead of us. And from then, Consul Willie just said, here we go then, and we drove off after it, if you know what I mean.
What kind of speed were you travelling at?
We were travelling very fast.
Did it make any kind of sound?
No sound that I heard at all. There was no outside noise apart from the noise of the car itself.
And the acceleration away from us was terrific. So really, we didn't get under it to hear any sound.
But you were really close enough to be absolutely certain that your eyes weren't fooling you?
Oh yes, it was just in front of us.
There was no question whatsoever that this was a figment of the imagination. It was definitely there. It was definitely either manned by some sort of being or remotely controlled. It was definitely being controlled to view our car or...
You had the feeling that it was watching you?
Definitely, yes.
I noticed that what I thought was a bright star, though, on the western horizon. It was unusually bright, so I kept watching it. It started moving towards me, and I was like, okay, it's a plane, because, you know, we get a lot of planes in our area, but before I knew it, it got closer. The light got super bright, and before I realized it, this massive diamond-shaped craft was gliding over me, no sound at all, 50 to 100 feet above me.
A large diamond-shaped craft.
But it's orange. They describe it as orange.
A shiny, he called it diamond black. I don't know why he said diamond black, but he says it looked like a shiny diamond and then it went up. It was so close that he was able to look at it and said it looked like little bricks, like little rectangular black diamond texture. That's what he called it. And he says he's looking at this thing, and in the center, he says it looked like lava was just moving in the center of it, like it was just boiling hot lava. And he thought, what the hell am I looking at?
Well, it was about 20 feet high, about 14 feet wide. It was a diamond-shaped object.
You can run calculations and probability tests all day long, but a formula is never going to output proof of an unacknowledged event. The day a math formula gives you 100% proof of a UFO is the day you're sitting inside one. There's plenty more to come, so make sure to hit that subscribe button. Upcoming videos will cover the full MUFON report, along with deep dive breakdowns and a ton of extra information on this case. And let me clarify something. I previously said this case was better than Roswell and Phoenix combined. Looking back, maybe not both, but definitely better than Roswell. Roswell happened almost 80 years ago. This didn't happen in the 1940s. This was just under 4 years ago. Do not let this case slip past. Hit like, subscribe, and drop a comment below. Also, a big shout out to the Backyard Professor. Be sure to subscribe to his channel for his thorough analysis and deep dives into a wide variety of subjects. Thanks again, Professor.